for women is very challenging to be part of that environment. But actually, what have been these biggest hurdles that you faced in the industry being part of that?
Yeah, really good question. You're absolutely right. It's still, I think, from a male-dominated perspective, it still very much is so within the fintech industry. I think there is progress being made, but it's too slow for full transparency in my opinion. And we're starting to see more come through at intermediate entry and intermediate levels. But from a fintech perspective, I think you're still very, very much lacking senior women leaders across the industry.
She is Laura Rofe, a woman mentor leading by example in how women show up and stand out in male-dominated industries. With years of experience across corporate banking and fintech, Laura brings clarity, courage, and community into everything she does. Our conversation is about the reality of being a woman in fintech, how to build authority in a space that doesn't always make room for you, and why mentorship isn't a luxury, it is a strategy. She also shares how she's using her voice and visibility to empower others and build a platform that connects mentors and mentees from underrepresented groups. So please grab a cup of coffee or tea, get comfortable, and enjoy this episode. Welcome to the Brilliantly Branded podcast. Welcome one more time to the Brilliantly Branded podcast. We are here again to have a conversation about what it takes to stand out and build authority in fintech. Fintech is a sector that is male dominated, and we all know that. I have been by personal experience living that, and it was really heavy and difficult to deal with. So my guest today knows this firsthand. She has been part of this competitive space. She as well have been building her personal brand, and now she's helping other women to do the same, leading by example. So she is a fintech leader, she is a DEI advocate, she's a mentor, and actually she have a lot of value to deliver today in this episode. And I will love you to invite you and give you the welcome. Laura, please could you introduce yourself and let us know a little bit about your journey, please?
Absolutely. Thank you first and foremost for having me. I think you're doing amazing things with your podcast, and I'm very honored to be here and looking forward to today's discussion. So as you mentioned, yes, my name is Laura Rofe. I'm actually very passionate about diversity and inclusion and pushing that out towards my community and across the industry and trying to impact change. A bit about me. You may hear from the accent, but I'm Australian. I lived in London for 11 years, and now I'm based in sunny Barcelona.
Wow.
In terms of, it's very good. I love this city. It's fantastic. I'm practicing my Spanish. So, but in terms of a bit about me and my career journey and where I am today, so I actually. It's a funny thing. I think a lot of people you speak to in fintech and more particularly with myself, I am in the payments space, is that, I never set out to be in this industry. You kind of fall into it as you were. But I got to the end of my uni degree, which was international business and marketing. And then I was like, what am I going to do? And so I applied for a bunch of graduate jobs and was super happy to be accepted onto a program with Australia's largest bank, which is Westpac. And so I went through a few years of corporate banking. I then got to a point where I was like to go on a new adventure, do some more travel. So I decided to go live in London for a year. And 11 years, so 1 year turned into 11. But it wasn't without its challenges. I very much had to have a big step back into my career when I went to the UK, just because the job market was very challenging. So it took me about 4 years to get back into the same financial position I was when I left Australia. But, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And now, here I am today. I'm working in the fintech space. I'm a director of account management and looking after strategic clients across the industry. So So yeah, I
Amazing.
mean, I did move away from the industry for a little while, but it definitely called me back. And I think, one of the reasons for this is that, it's an exciting industry to be part of. It's moving rapidly. There's a lot of uh, change happening, and change for good. So yeah, that's a little bit about my career journey.
Yeah, well, it was fintech part of your goal since the beginning to be part of this industry, or did you really end up there because the life brought you there?
Yeah, I think I started off, I mentioned, in corporate banking, but then when I moved to the UK, I was able to find a job in the fintech space, and it was fantastic to have that base of working for a big corporate bank and understanding, the foundations, the rules, the processes. But no, I never sort of said I want to specifically be in fintech. I think it kind of life sometimes pulls you in the direction that's unbeknown to
True.
you at the time. So.
Yeah, that's true. And well, as I share at the beginning, part of my experience, and many women that have been around me have been expressing as well the male-dominated industry. So I know that for women it's very challenging to be part of that environment. But actually, what have been these biggest hurdles that you face in the industry being part of that?
Yeah, really good question. You're absolutely right. It's still, I think, from a male-dominated perspective, it still very much is so within the fintech industry. I think there is progress being made, but it's too slow for full transparency in my opinion. Um, and we're starting to see more come through at intermediate entry and intermediary levels, but from a fintech perspective, I think you're still very, very much lacking senior leaders, senior women leaders across
Hmm.
the industry. But in terms of challenges that I faced, have been a woman. I've experienced this across the entirety of my career. Ageism is something we don't talk about much. We get the gender focus, but ageism as a young woman in corporate banking world, I go into the office every day. I'm surrounded by white men in suits, and being a female sometimes, not being taken seriously. Maybe I'm in the room, or because, and it's implied that I'm the one taking the notes or getting the coffee, perhaps, and I think these sorts of things are assumptions and biases that have lots of women across the industry feel the impact of in many ways. Definitely the inequality around pay. I mean, this is a topic that's been discussed on many, many occasions. I had scenarios where I was moving into a new role, and I was offered less than what I was currently on, and
Yeah,
not for a lack of
skills.
sexual harassment experiences,
Oh,
things that are sort of swept under the carpet, and things that are known. There was one scenario where I was told, whenever you go to speak to this certain manager, carry a piece of paper in front of your chest, or otherwise that's what they would be looking at. And this is something that senior managers, senior leaders said within the organization. So it was something known and nothing done about it. Toxic managers, toxic workplaces. Men, for example, I would take a male colleague with me to see another client, and the male client would shake my male colleague's hand and not mine. I had CEOs literally having conversations with the side of their face because they refused to look at me as a female. And I just think, there's so many different experiences, so many different things that women experience and face day to day in the industry, and it's disgusting, and it's unnecessary, and it's unfair.
yeah, it's a reality as well. I mean, probably we are not voicing out all the time these kind of things because we don't want to look like the victims of the
Mm,
environment, but these kind of things happen. And I think the most important part is how you build the authority and the visibility around that environment. So, stand out in this fintech sector requires more than just be good in what you are doing. I mean, your skills. So
mm,
it's about actually how you build this credibility and visibility. So sometimes it's going a little bit against the rhythm.
mm.
So how was this experience for you to really start to build this void and being heard and being seen and being understood?
Yeah, I think it's a really good and important question to talk about, because I know some of these things that, maybe I experienced earlier on in my career are not things that I would have felt, like you mentioned, felt comfortable voicing at that stage. And now, I built up my confidence. I know what's right and wrong, and I know what should be accepted and what shouldn't be. So being able to voice that, I find I can do that more now than what I would have in the past. But I think, as you touched on, having building that authority, building that visibility definitely really has a strong impact. And in terms of really how to establish yourself as a credible and visible leader, some things that are important for me, it's really about building relationships. I think, I cannot emphasize this enough in terms of building relationships with your peers, with, people across the industry, people who are like-minded. And this really helps to build up, a level of trust. I think it's important to do what you say you're going to do, and to really help to build upon that. And I think, one thing that that we do a lot of is we do a lot of asking, right? Can you help me with this? Can you do this? But also, what about, giving back? How can you share your experiences, your knowledge? How can you help somebody else? So for me, in terms of building, my credibility and who I am as a person, I like to think I'm a person of my word, and if I'm not able to meet that commitment, I communicate that. I build up that level of trust. And in terms of, visibility, for me, I think no matter where we are in our career, we all have something that we're able to give back to somebody else, to be able to share, and to be more visible. And one way that I've looked at doing that more of is, say, for example, LinkedIn is a great channel for be able to give back and be visible across the industry. So I utilize the likes of, LinkedIn, joining yourself on podcasts like this, joining speaking engagements. And I think this really does help, get visibility and credibility, so that you can then, help reinforce your position and your skill set and what you're able to bring to the table.
Yeah, I think is something that we need to voice out, as you well explain. But basically, I don't know if you have been feeling that, but I have been feeling that, and hearing many women that have been coming to the podcast as well to say sometimes we need to prove ourselves in certain way. We need to prove that we are good. We need to do an additional effort. So I don't know if you have been experimented that, but my question is more about how you have been overcome this situation when you know that you need to demonstrate your value.
Yeah. And the short of it is that it shouldn't have to be that way, because let's be honest, I've definitely been in the room where it hasn't had to be the case for male colleagues, perhaps, if we're looking at in a work environment. But I think, I think the other side of it as well is, yes, we do this. I think women as ourselves, we also put a lot of pressure on ourselves to achieve and succeed and be the best. So I think in terms of, overcoming this, some areas that, I've kind of looked at is mentorship, for example. I think this is a key. I'm a big passion of mine at the end of the day. I'm a big believer in mentorship. And why I say mentorship, I think because, it's important to, sometimes we just need that recognition. We need that other voice, that other person to saying, no, it's okay. You're doing the right thing, and give you some reassurance. And I think this is something that mentorship can help bring to the table. I think I looked at some stats the other day that said that 84% of mentees believe that mentorship can help really accelerate your role, accelerate your growth, help bring down the skill gap. And it's also something that companies can invest in, and see increased levels of productivity. I think one way to help build on this is really through connecting with the organizations that have a similar mindset. So you're meeting people. For me, it's great to meet you. You have a similar mindset, and we're here to champion the same thing of empowering women. And through that, you can have a level of a mentorship that helps you move forward and achieve in what you want to do. For example, I mean, I think mentorship is something that I know earlier on in my career. I've often asked the question, I wonder if I had a mentor back then, where I would be now, or how I would be able to work through some of the challenges that I experienced.
Yeah.
And lots of people actually ask me, actually, how do you find the right mentor? How do you find somebody? And a passion project that I'm working on at the moment is a mentorship platform I'm actually building for underrepresented groups. It's called Empower Match. And the idea is to help connect people who want to be mentors and give back with
Yeah.
people who are mentees who feel that they can need help and want support. So that's something that I think is definitely people should look into to help with this sort of thing.
Yeah, it is good, and it's good that you brought the topic about mentoring, because actually I think it's very important. But my question there could be something like, what do you think makes a great mentor-mentee relationship? Because building this relationship is one thing, and based on your objectives, I think you can choose the right mentor. But how is this relationship or the right match, as you was explaining? How that
Yeah.
works?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I think, there needs to be a level of connection, a level of chemistry between, a mentee and a mentor in order to, I think, both have to have and understand what each other's goals are. For example, I think it's important for, a mentor, what is their purpose of being a mentor? Is it that they want to, support and nurture, help them with their career growth? So I think aligning and on goals and that what you want to achieve is really important. Something that I do find tends to happen with mentorship. You're like, oh, okay, great. Would you like to be a mentor? Yes, I do. Would you like to be a mentee? Sure. And then you start having these sessions and they don't seem to really go anywhere or create traction. And that's why I'm a firm believer that it's important to be prepared for these sessions, to have some structure and to identify as what you want to achieve, what you want to work towards, and work towards that together. I think it's also important from a mentor-mentee perspective that you don't necessarily have a mentor in the same industry that you're currently in order to reap the benefits of mentorship. Mentorship, sure, they can impart some of their industry knowledge, but I think it's really about providing a level of support and guidance. And if you've got a leader, somebody who's a leader in FinTech versus
Yeah.
a leader in maybe hospitality, you're still going to be able to reap benefits from this. So
Yeah,
yeah, I think
correct.
there's a number of different things to consider on this front, but I think everybody should have a mentor or two, or somebody in your
Yeah.
corner anyway.
Yeah, it's actually role models, and they become role models, doesn't matter the industry, but based on your objectives as well. If you wanted to learn something specifically so about some industry, you should be finding a mentor that belong to that industry, or by your experience, you just connect with people that inspire you. Because I mean, finding a
Mhm.
mentor, and I think is a very deep topic, is how you really connect with that person, but it's value from both sides. Is not just what you are going to receive from your mentor, but actually what that really can feed your knowledge and make you give value to others as well, because become like the snowball. You
Mm.
have your mentor, but as well you can work as a mentor for somebody else. So did you use in your career a mentor that it was in a different industry, or you just use mentors that was in the fintech sector?
I've had mentors from varying different industries, but I mean, I think it has, for some of the objectives that I've wanted to achieve, it has helped to have somebody who has some understanding of the financial services sector, not necessarily fintech, but financial services. Because sometimes, like I mentioned, it depends on the goals you want to achieve. Maybe you want to expand your network, so you want to, maybe you're want to utilize your mentor to help connect you with other people in the industry for varying different purposes. So, it would be more relevant to have somebody industry specific for this. But mentors come in many shapes and forms, so I think it can vary very, very much just depending on what you want to achieve.
Yeah, that's true. And I guess that's the reason why this is the pain that you found. And this is why you are going to build this platform where
Yes,
mentors and mentees is going to have this match. I
exactly.
found that really, really brilliant. And I just looking forward to see this brand already outside and working, because I think it's a very good fit for a necessity that we all already have. And coming back a little bit with this visibility that you have been taking across your career, and talking a little bit about personal branding, because I
Mm.
think it's very important, especially to advise all those people that have probably thinking, wow, build a personal brand and get a visibility and get outside. So what will be your advice, especially for those women that are starting their careers and wanted to fit into the communication assertively in
Mm.
order to look with the values that they can deliver?
Yeah, I think something definitely to learn for me. I didn't have much in my career sort of guidance on what to do here. I kind of just thought, okay, this is what do I want to achieve. Kind of had a natural flow. And actually, a colleague of mine asked me the other day. They said, "Oh, Laura, you're doing some. I see your posts on LinkedIn, and you're doing these events. And how come you get invited to these and things like this?" And it's really I think it's comes down to consistency, like understanding what do you want to achieve. I think do you want to be giving back to your community? Do you want to build up your reputation? Do you want to build a network? Understand what you want to do, and then figure out a plan, and stick to it. And this can start in small steps. For example, maybe you're like, oh, maybe I want to start building my community and help to give back. And maybe it means that you start with a post a week on LinkedIn. You come across an interesting article and you're like, hey, I came across this. These are my insights. Let's share that. And then that kind of builds up, and you see the growth. You touched on it, the personal branding perspective, and I think it's something that's super important, particularly for women in fintech, and shouldn't necessarily be the case, but it is. And I think the importance around that is we are a male dominated industry, and I think having a strong personal brand can help you sometimes, as we touched on before, break through, be seen as an industry leader. Sometimes us women, we just put our head down and we get on with it. And it's not all about the visibility, but visibility is to be seen is important. I think in particularly in an industry where there's so much going on all of the time.
Yeah.
I think representation also really helps create pathways. For me, it's opened up doors to new opportunities. Like I said, invited to speak, to engage with people.
Yeah.
Helps me move into leadership roles, per se. It helps build credibility for your career, and being able to have influence and an impact. And for me, it's also been something that has helped me then leverage to be able to give back. So, for example, I do a lot of work with the European Women in Payments Network.
Yeah.
And I've just joined their executive board, but I'm building their community here in Spain, and it's having this leverage and this visibility. I've shared this through my community channels, and it's enabling me to be able to help other people and give back. So I think building a strong brand is something it's very important. I think for me, how to do that is two key points. I think, as I mentioned before, consistency. Devise a plan and stick to it, and stick to it consistently. And then also, what is your message going to be? So, for example, my message, I'm very passionate about diversity and inclusion, and that's what I push out through my channels. People know Laura equals diversity and inclusion. So I think they're the two key thoughts. Understand what do you want to achieve, what message you're going to push out, and then stick to it.
Yeah, you deliver a lot of value and a lot of key information, because it's not just about building the personal brand, as well as how you communicate outside, how you really deliver the right message,
Mm-hmm.
because you don't want to deliver a wrong message when you are going to attract people that is not connected with your values or not connected with what you want to do. So it's many things that is important to keep in consideration when you are building your personal brand, but especially when you are communicating that outside. and building that reputation, because otherwise the reputation will be enhanced on other people and how they are going to really be accurate to know who you are and what is your value. So basically, and actually to start to wrap up, Laura, I will love you to share with us what have been those lessons that you have been learning from your journey. Because being part of this male-dominated industry and building then a brand that is positioning yourself as a leader, as a thought leader, as someone that people wanted to connect with and giving back to the universe, and all those things that you have been sharing with us, what are the most impactful lessons that you have learned that you can share for others to feel inspired and to learn from you?
For me, it's finding your people. So I think it's super important to have a good tribe, as I like to call it, surrounding you. For me, it's having those people and connecting and being part of a community of like-minded people has been something that I think is very, very important for me. I'm part of the European Women in Payments Network, and they have helped lift me up and champion me in many, many ways. So I think looking back, if I had that piece of advice to give about my career, it's like find your people and communities that align with what you want to achieve and your mindset. And obviously find a mentor as well would be my other piece of advice. But I think it's about the people that you have around you. You can build the skill, you can build the knowledge. That stuff can come there easily, but having the support network to give you the confidence to move forward and achieve that is absolutely necessary for people on any level. On any level whatsoever.
Just, I wanted to ask, when you say find your people, you are referring to build your network, you are referring to post more frequently, you are referring to what specifically? Because find your people is different ways, but you can do it digitally and you can do it in person. So what will be actually the key thing to build that network? But more than building, how you keeping that really up to date and fitting that and making that works on your behalf?
Yeah, really good question, and it's not an easy task actually because
I know. I have
lots
been
of
there many
people
times.
Yeah, exactly. There's lots of fantastic people I have in network, but then how do you maintain that? So for me, it doesn't have to be. I mean, in person is fantastic. We're human, so human need human contact. So an ideal scenario is meeting people face to face, but in today's world, that's not always possible. But for me, sometimes maybe I touched base with somebody a couple of months ago, and they said they were doing XYZ and their career. So maybe I just drop them a message on LinkedIn and say, hey, how did you go? I saw, your project is now live. How's that going for you? So I think it's just about, keeping people front of mind, and showing that you care. And for me also, having a community and building those networks and finding your people is also about what are you giving back. And you don't want to always be that person who's just asking, asking,
Let
what are
me
you
pick
giving
your
back?
brain.
And
Let
then
me
for
pick
me,
your brain.
exactly. So for me, I always ask the question, what can I do to help support you?
Correct.
And I think this is very important.
Right now, fantastic, and thank you, Laura, for being here and share your knowledge and inspiration for our audiences. And thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you.
We hope you have been inspired by this content and join us for future episodes of the Brilliantly Branded podcast. We will continue exploring the power of branding and the stories behind successful brands. And remember, if you know a woman who has built a successful brand with a unique approach and a story to share, please refer them to our podcast. We would love to learn from their experiences and share their story with our listeners. Stay tuned for most episodes of Brilliantly Branded, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, on our YouTube channel for more branding insights and women empowerment. Until the next episode, ciao ciao.